ever been in that situation? Like, you're really getting ready for something important. A big presentation at work, maybe. Or like a huge decision you got to make. And you're using AI to get all the info, you know? Pulling together all those insights, all those statistics and projections, all that good stuff. But then this little voice pops up in your head and it's like, hold on a sec. What if this is all wrong?
Yeah, I get that. Like, healthy skepticism, right? It's tough these days, you know? We're just bombarded with so much information from every direction. Figuring out what's accurate, what's reliable, what we can actually trust. It's hard enough as it is, but then you throw AI into the mix.
This whole other ball game, right?
Yeah.
And that's, honestly, that's what we're really diving deep into today. The whole idea of fact check or response. It's kind of a mouthful, but it's basically a way to, like, make the AI show us its work, you know? Like, show us its receipts, prove it's not making stuff up.
Yeah, absolutely. Transparency. It's so crucial when you're dealing with AI because, I mean, let's be real, it can feel like a black box sometimes.
Totally.
So to actually have that insight into where the AI is pulling its information from, it makes a huge difference.
It's like that extra layer of, okay, I can maybe actually trust this.
Yeah.
And we're going to be getting into all of this using some super interesting stuff from George Tome's guide, the Generative AI Professional Prompt Engineering Guide, if you want the full title.
It's a mouthful, but it's good stuff.
It's good stuff, yeah. And even a little snippet from that podcast introduction text we've got, all about making AI a little less mysterious, a little more trustworthy.
Yeah, and it's interesting, you know, because it kind of flips the script on how we usually interact with AI. It's not just, here's your answer, see you later. It's more like, here's the answer, and here's all the juicy details I used to get there, so you can double check me if you want.
Yeah, it's like, instead of the AI just being like, oh, here's this amazing marketing strategy guaranteed to make you millions, it's also got to show its work. You know, point to the actual data, the trends it used to come up with that strategy in the first place.
Exactly. It's that sources cited section you'd see in a research paper, but for, well, pretty much anything you ask the AI.
Yeah.
Which I got to say is a pretty cool concept.
It is. It's like AI accountability, you know?
It really is.
But also, like, I'm not going to lie, it also seems like it could get really, like, in the weeds technical really fast.
Oh, for sure.
So for those of us who aren't, like, coding whizzes, how does this actually work, like, in real life?
Okay. Imagine this. Remember those math tests back in the day where you couldn't just write the answer, you had to show your work?
Right.
All the steps to get there.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that. The AI is basically opening up its thought process, showing us not just the what, but the how.
So instead of that kind of intimidating black box situation, it's more like, oh.
The glass box.
Yeah.
You can peek right in, see the gears turning, follow the logic.
I like that.
So, like, you give the AI a prompt, which is really just a fancy word for a clear instruction or a question. The AI takes that prompt and, you know, it does its thing, generates a response. But, and this is the key difference, right? Along with that response, it also picks out the crucial facts, the stuff it actually used to build its answer, and it presents it in a way that makes sense.
Like it's saying, hey, I did my homework, see?
Yeah, exactly. Here's the evidence.
I don't just take my word for it.
Back up a second.
Yeah. And it's that evidence, those key facts, like our guide calls them, that we can then go and double check ourselves.
And that part is key because we're not talking about just blindly trusting the AI to fact check itself here.
Right.
This is about giving us, the users, the power to think critically about what we're seeing, to not take anything at face value, to double check those facts ourselves.
So it's more of a partnership then. It's not just us passively soaking up whatever the AI throws at us.
100%. And you know what? The more we use this approach, the better we get at it ourselves.
Oh, interesting.
It's like we're sharpening our own critical thinking skills, regardless of whether AI is involved or not.
We're leveling up alongside the AI. It's like...
We're both getting smarter. I like it. But, you know, our guide does mention that this whole fact-checker response thing, it's not like a one-size-fits-all kind of deal, right? You can tailor it depending on what you're using it for. Oh, absolutely. Let's say you're working on a business proposal, right? And you're using AI to help you analyze market trends. With this prompt, you can basically say, hey, AI, give me the analysis, but also show me the work. What specific data points did you use to get to those conclusions?
I see.
Yeah. It's a really focused way to make sure that what you're putting out there, what you're basing your decisions on, is rock solid.
So it's not just for, like, super complex research projects.
What?
It's for everyday stuff, too.
Everyday stuff, big decisions, you name it.
This is starting to feel incredibly relevant for Well, pretty much everyone.
Right.
But, okay, but what about when the stakes are, like, really high? Like life or death kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
Does this
yeah.
still apply?
The guide actually gives an example of this in a medical context. Like, imagine being able to double-check a potential diagnosis, right?
Okay, yeah.
By seeing exactly which symptoms the AI flagged as significant.
Wow, okay, that's big.
It is big.
It really drives home the point that this isn't just about convenience or like making things a bit easier.
No.
This could actually impact safety, accuracy, really important stuff.
It really is amazing, actually,
Yeah.
when you think about how this could work, in different fields. I mean, we're talking about everything from, like you said, something as critical as healthcare to just like me at home on my couch, wanting to know more about some historical event, right? Or some scientific thing I don't understand. This could change how we learn about anything.
Okay. You've definitely got my attention now. But I gotta be honest, I'm still trying to wrap my head around how this actually works, like in practice. Could you, like, walk me through an example?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's say you're writing, I don't know, an article about self-driving cars and how they might change cities, right? Urban planning and all that. So you ask an AI, like, hey, AI, what are the biggest ways self-driving cars could reshape cities in the future? And the AI does its thing, spits out an answer. Maybe it talks about how there could be less traffic, right? Or how we might not need as much parking space, or even like how cities could create whole new areas because you don't need roads everywhere anymore.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. That's something I could totally see an AI coming up with.
Exactly. But here's where the fact-checker response magic happens. Instead of just giving you those ideas, the AI also lists out all the stuff it used to get there. So it might mention a few different studies, right, about traffic patterns in cities that are already testing out self-driving cars. Or it might point to some reports about parking demand from, like, urban planners, the people who think about this stuff for a living.
So it's not just making this stuff up. It's actually, like, doing its research.
Exactly. And it might even give you real-world examples. Like, hey, this city in Europe, they're already experimenting with a car-free zone, and here's what happened.
So it's like, don't just take my word for it. I've got receipts.
Look it up.
Exactly. And then you, as the human with the brain, you can go even further. Look up those studies, see if they're any good, right? Check the dates on those reports, see if those real-world examples actually back up what the AI is saying.
It becomes this really cool kind of active research process.
I can see that. Like, this could change how we do research in general.
Right.
But like we were talking about earlier, there's always that little bit of like, what if the AI messes up?
Sure.
What if those key facts, they're not actually so factual?
Well, yeah, and that's why we can't completely check out, right?
Right.
This prompt, it's not some magic solution. It's just a tool. And like any tool, it can be used in different ways. We still need to use our own judgment.
So we still got to be skeptical. Still got to double check things.
100%. The guide even suggests ways to, customize the prompt to make it even stronger. You could, for example, tell the AI that you only want to see the most recent research. Right? Like, if you're working on something where things change really fast, you don't want data from 5 years ago.
Oh, that's smart. So you could be like, hey, AI, give me your insights, but make sure the facts you're using are from, the last 2 years max.
Exactly. Or, let's say accuracy is super, super important for what you're doing. You could actually ask the AI to, rank the key facts it gives you.
Rank them? What do you mean?
Like, in terms of how reliable they are. So, stuff from peer-reviewed scientific journals, that would probably be at the top, right? And then maybe something someone said in an interview. That might be a little further down the list.
Oh, interesting. So you'd know right away which facts to maybe double check a little more closely.
Yeah. And all of a sudden, you're not just blindly trusting this AI. You're in the driver's seat.
I like it. Okay, so this is all really impressive, but it makes me wonder, if this fact-checker response thing is so useful, why isn't it just everywhere? Why isn't this just how AI works all the time?
That's a great question. And it's something the guide actually talks about a bit. I think part of it is just, this is still pretty new, right? Like any new tech, it takes a while for people to really figure out how to use it best and for it to become more mainstream.
There's always a learning curve.
Always. And in this case, that learning curve is about more than just, figuring out buttons to press. It's about changing how we think about AI in the first place. We're so used to just getting quick answers, but what if it's more about working together with the AI, like a team?
Instead of just being passive consumers of information, we become
active participants. And that's a pretty big shift. And it makes you wonder, what if this idea of transparency, of being able to see exactly where information is coming from, what if that became the norm? Not just with AI, but with everything.
It'd be like, I don't know, like hitting that show receipts button, but for anything you see online.
That's a great way to put it. Imagine like you're reading a news article online, right? Or even just scrolling through social media. And there's a little button you can click that says, show me the facts.
So if I'm reading about like the latest climate change research, boom, I hit that button and I can see all the data they used.
All the data, all the models, all the nitty-gritty details.
And not just see it, but like actually access it. So I can decide for myself if it's legit or not.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And maybe even find other viewpoints, right? Based on that same data. Because even with the same information, people can come to different conclusions.
It'd be like this whole new level of transparency in how we get our information. No more just taking someone's word for it. We'd all become like fact checkers.
In a way, yeah. And think about how that could help with all the misinformation that's out there. If everyone had access to this kind of transparency, it'd be a lot harder to spread fake news.
Yeah, it'd be like shining a light on all the shady corners of the internet where that stuff likes to hide.
Exactly. Because transparency isn't just about like catching people out, right? It's about giving everyone the power to make up their own minds.
So it's about empowerment. I like that.
It really is. And I think this fact checker response idea, it's a step in that direction. It's not the whole solution, but it's a start.
So what's the takeaway for our listeners today? What should they do with all of this?
Well, I think the biggest thing is just to be aware, right? Like AI is an amazing tool, but it's still a tool. And like any tool, it can be used in different ways.
So don't be afraid to ask questions.
Exactly. Don't be afraid to say, hey, AI, that's cool, but show me where you got that from. Demand those receipts. Develop that healthy skepticism.
Because ultimately knowledge is power, right? But only if you understand it. And part of understanding something is knowing where it came from. So, yeah, I think that's a good place to wrap up. It's been awesome diving deep into all of this with you today. This whole fact checker response thing, it's definitely got me thinking differently about AI and about how I get my information in general.
Me too. It's like anything else. The more you know, the more you realize you don't know. But hey, that's what makes it interesting, right?
Exactly. So until next time, keep those questions coming.